The working interior is 12 feet wide by 20 feet long. That's the average size of a one-car garage. As you can see in this quick pan, I also decorate the shop with comic books and comic art from my youth, specifically from 1981 to 1986. I also have Star Wars and Star Trek ships and figurines, beer advertisements, and the like. I realized without these decorations I would have more space for tools, but I spent a lot of time here, and I also wanted it to be a fun place for me to come and work. It's also a very short walk from my house. Everyone knows how to find me, including the shop dog Chester. The heart of my wood shop is the table saw. It is placed approximately in the middle of the shop to maximize rip capacity. The saw itself is not mobile. One of the few things in my shop that isn't. Attached to the table saw is a generous size outfeed assembly table. The assembly table has an open compartment where I store my crosscut sled, my L fence, the tenoning jig, and related accessories. In the first drawer, I have a blade lock jig to stop the blade from turning when tightening or loosening the arbor nut. The jig never really worked that well. I also have a table saw calibration gauge and a micro jig push block. In the second drawer, I have a pair of work gloves, joiner push blocks, a feather board, and a Craig plywood grabber. In the middle bank of drawers, I store my woodpecker setup blocks and the woodpecker setup expansion block cases, a set of Forstner bits, and I also have my plane and chisel sharpening diamond stones. On the left side, I store my compressor. The hose goes out the side of the assembly table and connects to a reel that is mounted to the floor that provides all my compressed air for my nailers. Table saw itself is a Grizzly 40th anniversary hybrid table saw. The saw is 115 volt, 2 horsepower direct drive table saw. So far, I have given the table saw high marks. It has powered through everything I have thrown at it without complaint, including a 10-quarter piece of oak. It doesn't bog down or leave marks on the oak. I also store my table setup blocks and my general use shop vac underneath the saw. The fence system is a Vega 50-inch model that I've been using since 2005. This is my miter station. It takes up most of the north wall. The station itself is a modified version of John Hines' I Build It miter station. It has 2 upper cabinets, one to the left and one to the right of the miter saw, and it has 2 tool garages underneath the upper cabinets. It has 2 banks of drawers underneath the miter saw itself. To the right of the miter saw station is where I keep my 14-inch quarter cable bandsaw. When I need to use it, I just roll it out to the center of the floor here, hook it up to my dust collection, and go to town. In this top cabinet, I store the shop vac responsible for the miter saw dust collection, such as it is. The lower cabinet houses my oscillating spindle sander on a pull-out cart. I store my track saw, my angle grinder, and a buffer underneath that sander. Everything is on wheels, so it slides in and out with no effort at all. I have some open storage in the middle, directly underneath the miter saw. I store my never-used woodpecker stair, tread, and shelf gauge. I regret that purchase every day. In the middle, I have a box that holds loose Allen wrenches. Who is Allen, and why do I have so many of his wrenches? And drill bits. The third one holds small spring clamps, playing cards, and loose odd fasteners. This big drawer is my blade storage. It holds my 12-inch miter saw blades, my 10-inch table saw blades, and 2 of my dado stack blades. I have 2 dado stacks. One is a cheap one from Home Depot for plowing out stuff in pressure-treated wood, and then I have a CMT dado stack that I got from Cat Moses Tools for my fine dado work. Everything fits in this drawer and it works out perfectly. In this next drawer, I store my clamping squares. I have a bunch of them. I have some fake ones from Amazon I got for my birthday. Craig clamps. I have some wooden ones that I got from A Glimpse Inside. My scraper and some router collets. This top drawer is my fastener drawer, and it holds all the standard screw sizes used in the creation of my projects. I also store 3-inch framing nails in here. The second drawer holds T-nuts, leveler feet, and threaded inserts. We also find my moisture meter, chalk, stud finder, staples, and various sprayer parts. The third drawer holds my calipers, marking gauges, shims, pliers, pneumatic stapler, cat's ball, and nail punches. And then the last drawer holds my camera equipment, my pneumatic framing nailer, and a Craig drawer slide jig. Above the right top cabinet is where my Lee dovetail jig lives. The right cabinet space has been divided into 4 vertical slide-out partitions. The first holds my sandpaper and the most used grits, 80, 120, 180, and 220, or as I like to call them, really rough, rougher, rough, and phoning it in rough. At the bottom of the pullout, I store all my biscuits. The second pullout holds my squares. There are 3 empty spaces because I store 2 in my tool apron and the third on my table saw caddy. The third pullout holds all my router bits and accessories. Last one holds my 18 gauge Brad Rodriguez nailer and then the 23 gauge pin nailer. There is a little cubby where I store all the nails. In the bottom right tool garage, I store my router table on a mobile cart. In the cart, I have some router table accessories and I also store my grinder. Now we come to the miter saw itself. It sits in the middle of the station. There is a large open cavity where I store woodworking books, wrenches, pencils, and odds and ends. The miter saw has 6 feet of clearance on the left and 5 feet on the right. I use the homemade miter stop to set the repeatable cuts on the saw. On the east wall, which I consider the back of my shop, I have a clamp storage rack, a propane heater, a dust separator, my rules and levels, and a drill charging station, and a big dust collector. I made this clamp storage from Brad Rodriguez's plans at Fix This and Build That. It holds my long bar clamps, my pipe clamps, my long trigger clamps, and of course my parallel clamps. Next, I have a piece of wood screwed to my shop wall that holds my larger F-style clamps and my 24-inch trigger clamps. Above the F-clamps, I have 4 red birdie edge guide rulers. In the middle of the wall, below my shop decorations, I have an Osborne E3 miter gauge, my floor-mounted compressor hose reel, and my Oneida dust deputy connected to my shop vac. The hose from the dust separator goes up and across the ceiling to collect the dust for my sanders and my bandsaw. The hose end reaches all corners of the shop, allowing me to keep the shop relatively clean. At this point of the east wall, we come to my levels, rulers, my track saw guide, a mini crosscut gauge, a vacuum start and stop switch, and my tapering jig. Brings me to the drill storage and charging station mounted on the right side of the east wall. I have my drills, batteries, and chargers. I have 2 small drawers where I store drill bits and accessories. I have several magnets glued to the outside for easy access to my drivers, VIX bits, countersinks, and pocket hole drivers. Below is a framing square and the very first square I bought when I started woodworking. I store my Craig pocket hole jig on the top of the drill station. To the right, I have my Harbor Freight dust collector with a Wen environmental canister filter, replacing the cloth bag that came with the collector. On the south wall, I have my French cleat tool wall. It's also got some lumber storage and an heirloom woodworking bench that's been in my family for 101 years. Above the tool wall is the shop's primary lumber storage. I have some walnut slabs that I've acquired on the upper rack, and on the lower rack I store all my hardwoods. In the center of my south wall is my French cleat tool wall. It has my glue and accessory storage. I have my random orbit sander, my portable belt sander, and biscuit joiner. In the middle I store my chisels and screwdrivers. The chisels are magnetically attached to the backer board, while the screwdrivers are attached to a magnetic bar. Next up and to the right are my planes. I'm not much of a hand tool guy, but these are the essential planes that I do use. I have a joiner plane, a jack plane, and 2 block planes. I have hammers and mallets on the left side at the bottom of the rack. Then come my pool saws. This is my woodworker's bench. It was given to me a few years after I started woodworking. It was my father-in-law's bench. Before that, it was his father's. It has been in my family for 101 years and continues the woodworking tradition in my shop. It is a source of inspiration to me and reminds me of my woodworking journey. On the shelf, I store handheld routers, a circular saw, paste wax, and various accessories. On the floor beneath the bench, I keep miscellaneous baskets, a toolbox, and a plumbing and electrical toolbox. Underneath the bench dog vise, I store everyone's favorite tool, the DF700 domino joiner. Here we are at the west wall of the shop, and it's what I consider to be the front of my shop. It has a two-door entrance that is directly in the middle of the shop and gives me enough room to get large sheets of plywood, big projects, heavy equipment, in and out of the door. I have my 5.5-inch jointer on a mobile base on the left side of the entrance. Depending on the length of the piece being jointed, I wheel it between the bench and the table saw, or for longer pieces, I wheel it between the door and the side of the assembly table. Next to the joiner, I have my 13-inch lunchbox planer. I don't know why it's called a lunchbox planer. I come into the shop and it never has anything prepared for lunch. It is mounted on the top of a mobile cabinet. When I need to thickness some stock, I wheel it out between the doors and the assembly table, hook up the dust collection, and thickness the heck out of my stock. You may have also noticed that there's a mini fridge inside the cabinet box. All well-equipped shops should have a mini fridge. I keep water, soda, and adult beverages in there. Don't worry, the alcoholic beverages are only consumed when the woodworking is done. Incidentally, this is my favorite spot for our shop dog Chester because he knows that's where his treats are. Above the planer, I have my benchtop drill press. I have it installed high like this because I am tall at 6'4", which is a good working height for this tool. Next to the drill press, I have my hand-painted Delaware Valley Workshop logo that my wife made for the shop. I have my mobile cutoff and plywood cart on the right side of the entrance. This is a recent addition to the shop as I was constantly storing cutoffs and plywood in every open area. I got tired of tripping over the cutoffs or having them fall on the floor randomly while I was working. So far, it has been working out nicely. The only drawback is that I must move it out of the way to access the bandsaw or the sanding station. But hey, that's life in the small shop. Finally, we come to my TV, where I watch YouTube, the new Yankee Workshop, and football. After all, one can't woodwork 24 hours a day. I hope you enjoyed the tour. As Master Yoda might say, always in motion, Joe's shop is. And that's true. Please leave a comment below if you have a way to organize the shop a little bit better, or you have any questions on anything that you have seen. I've always tried to make the layout more efficient. And other than the decorations and the TV, I'm open to any good idea that might maximize the shop environment. If you enjoyed the tour, I would appreciate you consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to check out some of my other videos, click on the card links displayed. So until next time, happy woodworking.